Hey. Wagwan, what y'all deal with?
Peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio, place for knowledge born. It's your host, Knowledge Born Alive. And I'm here with a special guest by special request. One of my magical matriarchs is back in the building, okay? As a Black love advocate, wife, mother, auntie, so many of the pantheons of the divine matriarchal power here to show us some love and give us some straightening. You understand what I'm saying? Because we out here flipping a little bit. So we going to get us together back in line. We got a doula, we got a healer, we got a motivator, we got an inspirer, and we got a truth teller and a truth seeker. So it becomes an honor and privilege at this time to introduce and present to others one of my magical matriarchs. In the fullness thereof, Empress Eshe is in the
building. Go ahead. Hey, man.
Putting this together, tell us about my new boys. Tell us about your podcast. Tell us about what you got going over there in that hey.
The concept of my new voice was really once I became an adult, once I kind of came into my own discernment. What do I think? What do I feel? What really are parts that I just was doing or saying because, I was in my parents' house? Or what parts do I really feel and passionate about? You know what I'm saying? What do I feel about a lot of brand new things that I'm experiencing? So when I think about the beginnings of it, it really was just that. It was kind of my own experimentation ground. I was just going live. I was like, man, whatever come out my mouth is what's going to come out my mouth. Sometimes you just have to start. Sometimes you may not have all the resources. Sometimes you may not have everything planned out. Sometimes you just have to start. My husband was the one who said to me, like, baby, you really should, look into doing a podcast. I just kind of started. I just was like, okay, I'm going to record it and see what ends up happening. And it can be a little bit daunting when it's just you and the camera.
One of your most recent videos, Ryan Coogler, FBA statements before we get into the movie, because these are kind of like the backdrops, right?
There was a clip that was going around. It was clipped to show a part of an interview that Ryan Coogler had. He was asked a question about why twins? What made you choose to have the main character, in this case, be characters? Because it was the twins, right? In answering that, he says, okay, well, being somebody that is foundational Black American, I'm a Black American, right? And right before he goes into the rest of what he's about to say, the clip stops. I found the rest of that interview. You got to see this.
He ain't lying.
There was a frustration that I had with the clip that was originally shown in that video, right? Because the video clipped the part where he said the words FBA, Foundational Black American, but they did not go forth into the part where he spoke about foundational Black Americans or African people in America being from Africa and being from West Africa specifically. And I was very frustrated with that because I felt like that was done on purpose.
Damn!
The only issue that I have with it is not because we're talking about Black people in America. I think that we are a beautiful and resilient people here as Black people in America. We can appreciate FBA culture and we can appreciate our African ancestry. It's just cutting that part out. And that's the only issue that I've ever had as it relates to the FBA movement. Okay. The broad strokes of it as it relates to this movie, and then we could get into the detail. I'm first going to talk about the things that I appreciated about it. There was a lot of ideas as it relates to spirituality and as it relates to culture. The one that I'm going to bring up is the one that is the most talked about, which is the concept of hoodoo. And hoodoo originated in New Orleans. I really like the fact that they brought that into the movie. So they did show, very clearly, like her creating the juju bag and showing her in the Botanica that was like her magic store and, all of those different things. I liked the aspect of them adding the Asians in there because I think that it taught me something that I didn't know, the presence of Asians during that time period of history and their significance in Black communities and different stuff like that. So learning about the Delta Asians, I liked the fact that Black music really was seen as something magical, was seen as something like a portal. So when we get into juke joint scene where you see him conjuring these spirits and you see this beautiful array of culture, it was an experience. That scene was really truly an experience, showing different aspects of Black culture around that time. Obviously this was pre-integration, so really just kind of showing what life was like for Black people at that time. The concept even of the Black church in the way that, you know, they pretty much rejected anything that was not them. Anything as it related to music that was, you know, that was just considered the devil's music. I want to start with that because from this point, I am going to offer some ideas about the movie and some things that I thought about it, because I try not to go into it like, okay, this is just going to be an amazing movie. I try to go into it a little bit more objectively than that so that I can kind of see how it really felt. Overall, I think that he did do a good job with the production. I felt like we needed a little bit more as it related to the twins. I wanted to know more about, you know what I'm saying, like their background and everything. I wanted to kind of know a little bit more as it related to Sammy. I wanted to know, you know what I'm saying, like even once we got into the aspect with the vampires, they really kind of just kind of came out of nowhere. And it was kind of like we could have stood to know more as it related to the Native American characters. So a lot of these things are like a good thing still, and more, I just wanted more of it. The vampire movie aspect of it came at an odd part in the movie, and then it kind of took over. And like I feel like if it was going to be a horror film, maybe we could have brought them in a little bit earlier, or maybe we could have had a little bit more build up to there being vampires. And then I think that, like, I saw a review and one of the brothers was saying that the vampires represented, you know, white supremacy. But I feel like the white dude who was the what was his name? Remick. Like he may have been a little bit less in tune with racism, and it almost made him seem like he was just a lover of music. But I was like, if the point was going to be showing them as like culture vultures, I would have liked for that to be more apparent. We could have made the horror aspect of it a little bit stronger if it was going to be a horror movie, because the classification from what we ended up looking up, the classification of it was horror slash adventure. And I felt like if it was going to be a horror movie, there could have been more signs of that earlier in the movie. Loved the aspect of the twins. Man, Michael B. Jordan did amazing with that. I'm not gonna lie to you, just like two completely separate personalities, and like he bodied both of them as it relates to the spirituality side. I'm always very hesitant anytime that they do use aspects of hoodoo or anything like that in association with a horror movie. It then becomes looked at as like black magic or like witches or like something scary. Her magic and the things she was doing in it absolutely were not demonic. And that's the part that was kind of hard for me to tussle with, because then in addition to it being something that is demonic, which is vampires, then you have something that's supposed to be horrific in amongst it. I think that it read more as a period piece. It came across more like it was going to be about the aspect of Black music. And I feel like that kind of was taken over by the vampire piece once it came to a certain point in the movie. I wanted some sort of conclusion as it related to the magical aspect, the hoodoo aspect, and the music aspect. It kind of seemed like it stopped being about either one of those once the vampire came in there. So I would have loved for it to be a continuance of the power of those things, but I feel like the vampires kind of overshadowed all of that. I appreciated all of the aspects of it. And then when we got to the ending, one of the twins had been turned to a vampire. The hoodoo lady, she ended up being you know, bitten by the vampires, and then she wanted him to go ahead and end her life so that they wouldn't be able to take her magic. Then, you know, you got Stack, and he's just kind of like, okay, well, if I'm going out, I'm taking all of these out with me. Like, what else do you have to do with all of that energy that you just saw your brother, in essence, get turned to a vampire, the love of your life? You know what I'm saying? You just lost her in the midst of this whole thing. What do you really do now? You know, we began to look at the character of Sammy. He goes back into the church, and obviously he's either he been in a fight with a lawnmower, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, Something obviously happens to him. The first thing his father said is, you got to leave that music alone. But then you see him later on in life and he's playing the guitar and everything. And there's something that I feel as it relates to this. And it's kind of like a mystery of how it ended.
The story, from my perspective, Sammy recalling the greatest moment and the most defining moment in his life and in his career. So this old man who was about to transition, sitting in this bar, looking back on his life, and this is his recollection of the events that took place. So we have that backdrop. The story makes sense because he's recalling it how he remembered it. He's an old man in dotage, and an old man in dotage is an elderly person who's experiencing a decline in mental capacity, often accompanied by behaviors like silliness, forgetfulness, or excessive affection. So if you see how he shows himself in the story, it's almost insignificant. So he's in the background. His father said, if you dance with the devil long enough, he's going to follow you home.
I would say the most relatable character, I would say in concept, I would say Sammy. And here's why. I feel like you are a storyteller. You have such a deep, vast library of information that pretty much anything that we talk about, you have something that you can pull from to add to that because you have so much information. The concept of the griot, I feel like you are the storyteller and you are the person that is, the keeper of the records, the keeper of the stories. As far as least relatable, Smoke. He was very logical and sensible, but he didn't really leave room for much else. He's kind of like, I gotta be the logical one because my brother be on his own thing and I just kind of gotta keep things on what I know, and that's pretty much it. And I would say that that's the least relatable to you because even though you do have all of that information, you always leave an open space for there to be other information presented, either that you don't know or even if you don't agree with it.
So Elijah and Elias, they women, it wasn't no game. They ain't played no game from the overworld to the underworld, right? Sammy telling this story. He met the love of his life that day. And he lost the love of his life that day.
I appreciate the conversation, the dialogue and everything. And I think that's because I'm a true conversationalist. Somebody disagreeing with me doesn't offend me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you got to find a word.
Looking at the world and looking at, as it relates to our people specifically, a lot of things that we need right now is unity and we need healing. A lot of people think that we can just kind of skip past a lot of those things because even though somebody else may be accountable, you are still responsible to take action for what you need to do with your life moving forward.
For your time, thank you for your love, thank you for your care, honest to you. And that wonderful king out there, okay? They're like, oh, she had picked me now. She got picked, fam. Okay?
Hell yeah, come on now.
You got picked, fam. You ain't get picked, fam. You out here talking this pick me stuff, and ain't nobody picked you for the soccer team, fam. Okay?
Right. I have no complaints, and he has no complaints. Okay, thank you. Anywhere that you type in Empress Eshe Obasi, I'm going to pop up on all major social media platforms.
Hey. Wagwan, where y'all deal with?
Wagwan.
Go ahead and leave my social media information right here like I always do so that you guys can go ahead and tell me what y'all think. I want y'all to check out all the other posts and things that I have on those pages and let me know what y'all think about those too. Also, I'm going to go ahead and put my YouTube information right here as well. So y'all can go ahead and subscribe to my channel and check out all the other videos that I have on there. And also be privy anytime that I do post another video. But in the meantime, in between time,